Oh, you starting?
No, okay, who started?
We've tried to plan these things, but we don't really plan them.
No.
Anyway, today's Hilux Day. I talked about this for a split second on the Instagram page.
Yeah.
We made mention of the fact that we're into something here. This is the something, so we hope you guys enjoy this video.
You bet.
We are today talking about a special new company, newish company that's into scale RC, and we're going to hit it off with some fantastic looking Hilux trucks. These,
love my Hilux.
I know, and I love your Hilux.
Well, thanks. Yeah.
Yep.
Here we go.
Oh, great.
All right, where do you want to start? We've got several Hiluxes to choose from, which, and so where do you want to start? Should we start with one of the first that's sort of...
Let's do that.
Yeah, okay, let's do that. So let's get a couple off to the side and we'll talk about our Orange Crush, and then we'll talk about the original, and then this one, and so on and so forth.
So this Hilux is a little famous for us too.
Yeah.
Because when we first met, you were working on this truck.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was basically working on this one. I had got reintroduced into the hobby world and found this particular kit and built it. Now, of course, it's gone through some evolution.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is sort of what started it all for you and I. Definitely getting into the Hilux and tiny truck world for sure.
Yep.
So
tell me, what was the important part for you in building this truck? So because I think every time I put a whole truck together, I think there's always something that stands out to me, and I say to myself, this I have to do on this build. There's no negotiation.
Well, I think what I wanted to do was make it as realistic or as scale as possible. And that was basically what I did. So, you know, with this, you're talking about a full interior, you're talking about an engine bay, you're talking about a dropped bed. So those were some of the key features that I wanted to do just to bring it to the next level. Take that modeling side to it.
It's gorgeous too.
Thank you.
So, this one is how many years old?
I think it's at least 10 years old, at least.
I'm thinking the same.
Yeah. And you know, it's got a few things on it that either were hand fabbed or 3D printed 10 years ago. Was like,
well,
you know,
that was vacuum forming and styrene work and you know, all that. Yeah. So it's definitely a different world now.
For sure, a lot more scratch build per se. But that was the concept, was just to take it to the next level, and I think I did that. And of course, it's got some nice bits on it that really brought me to that level.
So this one's called Orange Crush.
Orange Crush. Yeah, you betcha.
I can't believe it's so dirty. It's just...
Well, you know, you got to keep some of them dirty, right?
All right.
Okay.
Let's move on to the next one.
Okay. Why don't we dive right back into this one here, or talk about this one, because this one is of course special too, which is you know, the original.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
This truck has a really interesting history, and the bodywork has been halfway around the world.
Yeah, again, wanting to be as realistic or as scale as possible. This is an original Hilux from Tamiya.
Which is original, like how original?
Like all original and like perfect. It basically, what happened was, I had a chassis that was built and a body that was unbuilt, and I got it professionally painted and detailed out. And I just love it. I mean, it's an original one. It's kind of what started the tiny truck world, in my opinion, 30, 40 years ago. So,
yeah. So this is a vintage Hilux.
Yep.
Any other qualifications? It's not high lift. That was the new one.
Yeah, that's... yeah.
Is there like a chassis designation or something on this that makes it noticeable?
Well, I think what really makes it noticeable is that the accuracy to the chassis, and of course the body, but you know, you've got locking hubs on this. So real locking hubs. You have a chassis that really mimics an original Toyota chassis. You've got axles that sort of represent a Toyota axle set. So there was a lot of effort that was done for accuracy. And being one of the originals, it's a special rig for sure.
This is gorgeous.
Thank you very much. I really like that one.
Really nice package.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a shelf queen. It has no mud on it.
Until it was on this table.
Until it was on this table. But yeah, it's definitely a special Hilux. I really like it. So, and I'm privileged to have it for sure.
Yeah, well done. I love your livery on it too. It's got a real classy but vintage look, so good job.
Thank you very much. Next, I think in this Hilux road that we're taking here is another Hilux we have.
This is heavy.
Yeah, I know. It's
got some mass.
Yeah, it's got some mass to it for sure.
Yeah, it's like metal everything. Okay, what do we got here?
So this one was another build, another Hilux. Of course, it became a 4-door Hilux, so of course you have to have it and you have to build it. And again, realism, make it as scale or as realistic as possible, the modeling side. I really took the modeling side of this one to the next level. And that was one thing that I wanted to do with this one in particular. So again, we're talking about a full interior, a full engine bay, scale accessories. So yeah, it was a special one. It's the livery is the city of Gloucester, where we are. I used to work for, and I used to see these trucks around the city. Yeah. So I thought I'd mimic that example, and that's what this was. It was a special build for one of the events that we go to, and yeah, I really like it. It's a nice piece.
So what on this build did you absolutely have to have? It was the must-have feature.
Well, I think one of the things that I really wanted on this was the chassis and the driveline. So you're talking
to build your engine bay.
Yeah, to build the engine bay.
I get
it. This is where the sort of the driveline really escalated in such a way that we could put a full engine bay. So that was something that I wanted to do to this.
So where the Orange Crush truck is a prototype C-Max, when we first started making C-Max,
that's right,
with scale drivetrain, this is a full production version.
That's right.
It's got the narrow axles, for the 152 narrow axles, so they fit under the body to look scale, and then you've got this engine, the motor can is right in the right spot for a detailed engine bay.
Yeah. So that was what this was. This again was done for an event, and we went after it on the modeling side of things, and I'm really pleased the way it came out.
This is really nice.
Yeah. So which is it's a special build, and it's seen some trail time, but it doesn't get abused for sure.
Yeah. And we're connecting all that to a brand new model we're going to talk about today, right here. And this truck comes out of the box with a level of detail that is hard to comprehend.
Agreed.
Let's dig in.
Yeah, let's do that.
Introducing FMS Models Hilux.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's it's hard to believe because for so many years we've been looking at building these trucks that actually need so much more put into them to make them really scale realistic, and this is anyway, let's open the box. This thing is incredible. I want to thank FMS for sending this over for us to take a look at it. You have to see the packaging on this as well. They're killing it with packaging. This is so cool.
I had a preview look at it, and I was in awe of how well it's done. So yeah, it's right from the packaging to the model. It's a really nice piece.
So they of course put the front on the front and the back on the back. Very cool. You've got pretty cool shot there, and then of course specs. So man, anyways.
Of course, little manual that comes with it.
Yep.
Which I think you've actually read.
I actually read. I read the manuals, and I did discover some features on this that are not even in the manual. So we'll talk about that too.
For sure.
Now, first we have to deal with the fact that maybe somewhere in the world this is a 1983 Hilux, but this is not a 1983 Hilux. So why is that? Describe that to me.
Well, I think, there is some question whether halfway through 1983 it became maybe like the model year changed. I'm unaware of that. but I think it probably should have round lights or what have you. So perhaps the model year isn't correct, but everything else about it is correct, whatever year it is.
Yeah.
It's definitely a Gen. What Gen is that? That's a Gen 3, I think. So when it's and correct us if we're wrong, for the Gen 3 models, it's a really nice piece.
Of course, we're diving into the 1/18th scale world here, which is sort of a genre. Like 10th scale is a genre. They're not all exactly the same scale, but the sizing is 1/18th.
Yep.
I love this kind of packaging.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah.
Because it's all rotocast or whatever, so that you can actually put the truck back in when you're done and not have it get destroyed. There's so much cool detail on this that you don't want to wreck it. Like it's, anyway.
And for us, we do a lot of traveling with these vehicles, and oftentimes they end up in pillowcases or whatever, right? And you get the road rash. Yes. So to have them in these packaging when you're traveling is really good, really handy. So kudos to you guys for using this type of packaging.
And then when the screws fall out on the road,
you know where they are.
They end up in the box.
Yeah,
so you can identify what truck they fell out of.
Yeah, because we've had that happen and gone searching for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got looks like 4-channel transmitter. Mm-hmm. The functionality of this is interesting. It says 6 channels on the transmitter. I expect that because there's a couple extra light sockets on the receiver box, you can probably add some other lighting to it and maybe use the remote for that.
Yep.
But we're going to talk about this in a minute. There's some cool stuff on this that I found out that's not in the manual.
Okay.
So let's go over the bodywork on this first. And then we'll sort of, just as we did with the other trucks, we'll talk about, what part of this model makes it special on the scale side.
You bet. Well, give me your first impressions though. What would be, like when you opened the box for the first time, like what did you think to yourself?
The very first thing I thought was, there's very little compromise. Mm. The first thing I saw was it's got an absolutely full depth bed in it.
Yep.
Right down to the bumper, down to the frame. That is so rare in a scale truck nowadays. There's always some compromise in the box. So, and this is really deep, so I'm impressed about that. There's immediately you look in, the windows are not all tinted and weird. You can look right inside, and they're not ashamed of it. It has a full depth interior. Yep. The floor pan goes right down to the rocker panel. That's crazy, man. Nobody does this. Opening hood, very cool lights, some nice badging on it, actual proper chrome mirrors. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
The first impression is so good. It looks really good, and it doesn't feel cheap.
No.
Weird plastic and bad mold lines and stuff. It doesn't feel like that at all. It feels somehow way higher end. So
my first impressions were, first of all, it was the scale, to be honest.
Oh.
Again, typical, the 1/10th variety of scales that I'm used to.
Yeah.
I thought, what a really unique scale. And I really enjoyed the size of it. So my first impression was, wow, that's a really neat size. And then, of course, the color, yellow. I like it. It's nice.
Sure.
It's a nice colored yellow. It's very, somewhat reminiscent of Toyota back in the day with their off colors.
Yeah.
I liked it right off the bat. I thought it was a really neat truck. I love the scale, and I liked it off the bat. Some of the things that really sort of were neat to see was the actual mirrors are actually mirrors.
Yeah, they're like
foil tape,
shiny inside. Yeah, they literally reflect inside. It's cool.
But one of the things that I wasn't crazy about was the actual width of the
fenders.
The fenders here.
Fenders.
Yeah, they're a bit wide, but other than that, first impressions were great for sure.
I guess I have to adjust my expectations a little bit because as the chassis designer guy, the first thing I think of is oh, let's check out the suspension and holy cow, there's no oil shocks. Does anybody have oil shocks in a 1/18th scale truck ever? Do they even weigh enough to care about that? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
So, but I get crazy about stuff like that. So from the mechanical point of view, everything is there. And because the truck has enough mass to drive on its own but it's not so heavy that it's probably going to break itself.
Right.
and it doesn't have enough power to brake itself. This thing will probably drive for the rest of eternity just fine.
You betcha.
And I mean, it comes with a LiPo battery, a 2-cell typical LiPo. This is like, everybody's so used to how to deal with LiPo batteries now.
Yep.
And the runtime on this is ridiculous. 380 milliamp hours, and this tiny little truck is probably, we're talking like a half hour plus. It's crazy good on fuel.
So let's, I know you mentioned a few of the details, but maybe we'll dive into a few more details and really sort of shine what this is all about, because for the modeling side of things, this is a standout. You know, there's a lot of things in here that are a standout for the model builder, you know, who has an RC car. I mean, the two worlds are colliding here for me.
Oh yes,
for
they
sure
are.
For sure. So it's a couple of things that I've noticed that you mentioned is it certainly has a full interior, which is something we've always been a big fan of.
Pushing hard for that all the time.
You betcha. And if you look at the dash and the steering wheel, I mean, it's hard to see on camera. You got to get your own. I mean, the steering wheel is correct. The dash, there's
with the stripes on the wheel and the little tiny raised bosses on there, like at the horn buttons, and they didn't have to do all that. Is what
correct.
I'm saying.
Yeah,
they did it all.
That's right. It could have been just some generic, you know, dash toy or whatever.
Sure.
No, they took the time to do the badging, to do all of the controls there. So now you can get in there. You can take it all apart. You can get in there with a brush.
Yeah.
Detail it out, and it's all there for you. And I really, really appreciate that. I really like that. It was really nice. Of course, it's licensed, so you definitely have the Toyota branding, which is nice. The grill work on the front is really done well. I really, really like that.
And then there's a discussion in the front about this corner.
Right, there's mold lines or
where all these body lines converge here, right at the tip of the hood. There's a lot of discussion around that, because there's other vintage Toyotas of this vintage that are around in the 10 scale RC world that have not, those features are not correct.
Right.
So like body features, body lines that actually are the right body lines, that matters.
Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does.
Like the little tiny details, like these tie down hooks on the sides of the box.
Yep.
They didn't have to do that, but they did.
Yep. You know, it's got wipers, it's got mirrors, and like we mentioned earlier, the actual reflective mirror, which is, I know it sounds like, well, who really cares? But it's those small details, and when you add up all those small details, it really starts to turn out to be a nice model.
It's very, very nice.
Door handles, of course, they're not sort of body color, they're
stickers.
Or stickers, correct. You've got, you know, actual lenses here in the front, in the back. It's something of an oddity. The actual license plates, I think this, I'm not sure which ones they are. It's but I don't think it's left-hand drive with these.
Oh, I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? So I would
never know.
You never know. I would change these out, of course, to where I'm from. But it's all there, full interior, as you say, drop box, and then of course, you know, the hood lifts up. I mean, how often have we been asking for that?
I know.
Of course, all the electronics are in there, but you can put sort of a flat belly motor pan in there. Yeah. You know, you could scale that out.
Yeah.
Really, really well done on the sort of realistic side of things. You know, it's funny. Last time I was coming out here, I actually saw this on the way here. I saw a sort of a gray one. I mean, it was it had weathered a bit. But I believe, and I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that this is an actual long box.
That is a long box, I think, yes. Yeah.
So I was unsure as to why this looked like this after seeing the real one.
Yeah.
And I believe it was a short box or a regular box.
Regular, yeah.
And then I looked at this and then it clicked. I'm like, oh, I believe that's a long box.
Yeah.
So that's got that unique shape to it, which I like now.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then, you know, little small details. I think you mentioned that. Like, they took the time to, there's a little bit of wiring in the box.
Yeah.
And they took the time to put yellow shrink wrap around that, just to hide it. Like, those little things add a lot, in my opinion.
They really do. And that to mention also, it's lit. There's backlights, LEDs in the back, which, as you say, they covered the wires.
Yep.
There's no visible wires on this truck anywhere.
Yep.
They're completely hidden in the underbody or somewhere else in the panels. headlights, turn signal markers. So anyway, wow. The other thing we should mention is if you're not a yellow fan, this is a typical ABS model lid. So sand and paint.
Absolutely.
Right? This is a full body on frame design. You can unbolt the box off the body, off the frame. It still looks like a truck. You can unbolt the cab, repaint the cab. The interior is all separate components. Like, this is one of those things where if you wanted to do some more modeling detail on it, all of that comes apart the way you would expect it to. It's not all weird and half like connected and glued and all that stuff. You can just unscrew a couple screws and take it all apart.
You betcha.
And go to it.
Absolutely. I think that's you sort of nailed it in that sense. Is that if I was to own this, if this was in my in my crew, I would take it all apart and I would paint it, detail it, do all of that, and put it all back together. Whether I change the color or not, I would probably spray it anyways. Yeah. But absolutely, the modeling side on this is huge, huge.
It's a top shelf product. Like, I'm really impressed with the modeling side, and I think that's a theme that we're going to start to see in FMS over the years. Of course, they've been doing very scale replica models in the aircraft world for years. Years. And I mean, like, detail like this, but in the aircraft world with little rivets on the cabins and like all, that sort of level of detail, and still fully functional flying RCs that fly good. And so now we're talking about a Hilux model that actually also drives good.
Yeah. Agreed.
So anyway, we need to insert a big load of driving footage here because it's super fun.
We'll do that.
And anyway, take a look at this and then we'll come back and talk about the electronics at the end. Nice overdrive. There's enough resolution to get it to crawl nice.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't think it's really that picky to drive.
Give me a thumbs up.
Ladder frame, which is good because if you ever wanted to get creative like we do and, you know, change the box to a camper van or something, because campers are awesome, then you can do that because it's an actual proper ladder frame. This is all link suspension on here. So super easy, super reliable. You've got coilover shocks, all ball bearings everywhere, telescoping drive shafts. The lay down shocks in the back actually let you get like really good clearance for the box. So that's kind of cool. The drivetrain is all centered here on the skid plate. So with these two screws you can drop out the whole transmission. And then the front links attach right here. Because this is a long wheelbase, the links in the rear attach here, right on the frame. And C-channel frame, pretty cool, you know, metal, stiff, lots of options for other kinds of mounting. You can see the interior bolts are right here. And then there's two screws in the front here to attach the rad support area. Bumper bolts on, easy to adjust if you want to change that. And then we've got Cooper Discovery tires, you know, like licensed, pretty cool. These are actually like real off-road looking tires, right? We use these in real life. They're real tires. I'm not a fan of the 5-bolt rim, but rims can be changed.
Yeah, that should be 6, should it not?
I mean, Toyotas are 6-bolt, right?
Yep.
So
yep.
That's something that's just detail that could be fixed later on. As far as engineered reliability, pretty simple stuff, man.
You bet.
Yeah, really well done. Simple, it works. We all know this suspension geometry. We all know how these work. They're pretty easy to drive, so it's good. Good job. So, we have what is said on the channels here to be 6 channels. And why do we need 6 channels? I'm not exactly sure. But what I did find out is that they're using channel 4 and 5 as ESC controls. Very interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
So this transmitter has this unique thing on it where it has an A mode and a B mode. And if it's in A mode, you get the trim buttons to function as, you know, steering trim, throttle trim, stuff like that. And then they have a button on here that says steering angle. And instead of actually using endpoints for steering, which you can set, you just simply push the button. So then you get a little 30% steering, 50% steering, full steering. So you can back that back and forth. You get different endpoints on the steering. I find that feature kind of useless, to be honest. Who doesn't want full steering? But it's there.
Right.
Maybe it has some feature function on some other model. I don't know, because I'm sure they share electronics, right?
Yeah.
This electronic set is a FMS branded electronic set, whereas some of the electronics I've seen in FMS models or in different brands don't use their own electronics. They import them from other companies, so they're branded differently electronics. For instance, Axial uses Spectrum Electronics, right? So this brand of electronics is FMS. So I found it interesting that you can select the ESC modes right from channel 4 and channel 5.
That's neat.
Interesting.
Yep.
So for instance, you push channel 5 button and it cuts your power all the way in half.
Okay.
So if you're on full power mode,
right,
it drives like you would expect. And let's say you want to have more detailed control, you can hit channel 5, it cuts your power in half. Period. So yes, you lose climbing power.
Sure.
But you also get a little more resolution on the throttle, so it's, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then the channel 4, you also use channel 4 for doing the same thing again. So if you hit channel 4, you can actually saw that power again in half.
Isn't that interesting?
So now you've got a really nice low-speed truck. Let's just say you wanted to hand this over to, you know, your nephew who's 8 years old and he wants to drive it around your backyard track. You could easily set it up in a lower power mode, which might make it very much easier for him to drive, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they're too jumpy, and you know what I mean? So that's a kind of a functional feature, especially if you're trying to introduce somebody to RC. This isn't a terrible way to do that.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
I've always, I mean, you know, you've taken your model that you've spent, you know, you've taken it and then painted it and now given it to your nephew and your... Yeah. So
I know.
if you can just sort of low and slow kind of thing, is good.
Some kind of training mode or
that's a nice
reduced power. That's common now on electronics. So I'm glad that they have that because it's popular around. The other thing that this A/B mode lets you do is you can actually change the trim buttons. If you switch it to B mode, you can change the trim buttons into lighting functions.
Oh, okay.
So It's really easy. I mean, you flick the switch, you push the button. That's it.
There you go.
You can get high beams, low beams on the headlights. You can select lighting modes for the rest of the lights. And so, you know, you cycle through the different modes they have and off you go. And if you really do something terrible and don't know what you did, there's a complete factory reset button right beside it. So if you want to, and you just want to go back to stock settings, boom.
So the one thing, I've got this in my hand, and you know, it feels really nice. Like, it's got a nice feel to it. It's got good weight. The steering wheel feels good. Everything feels good about that, and it's not too small. It's the right size. So and as you say, it's fairly simple. I really like it. I really feel as though that's got a nice feel and grip and size to it.
Not too small.
No.
Which I was worried about because it's a very small truck in a very small box. I was expecting something like maybe even push button, joysticky.
Like remember the old?
But that's not it. I mean, they somehow squeezed this thing in the box. It's like, look at the size of it compared to the truck.
I know.
And it's in there.
Yeah.
So, now, to close this off, we need to put this back in the box and show you why this is so amazing. Let's take a look at this. You get the base. Here's the base.
There's the base.
They give you some side steps here, which I have not yet installed. A battery charger. There's your LiPo. A 4-way wrench to get your wheels off and all that. And then the truck simply goes back in the box. This is a little too crazy to believe. There you go. Drop it right in.
Bingo.
Mirrors don't even get chopped off. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then you put the tailgate down. Cover the truck.
Because you don't want to scratch it.
Because you don't want to scratch it. The transmitter has a pocket right here. So we're going to put that in there. Close the door. Put the transmitter in there.
Amazing.
And then this whole thing is going to go right onto the truck.
Bingo.
Off you go.
Off you go.
Look at that. Go. Nothing gets harmed in the transport of this vehicle, and that is so key, man.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish everybody would do that.
Yeah, I agree.
How many times have we tried so hard to keep the mirrors and the details on the trucks, and they just...
Yep.
You can't travel with them.
Yep, agreed. And now we can.
Great job, FMS. Great job.
Yep.
So there's a little review of their 1983 Hilux model, which is fully licensed and pretty exciting. They've done a really good job. Thanks so much for the chance to do a review on this. Drives good. And anyway, let's go play some tiny trucks.
You betcha. Take
See you
care.
later, guys.
Bye now.